What's up, everybody? Welcome to the newest episode of Demo Day, the podcast for entrepreneurs and venture capitalists, where we demystify the culture of joining one of the top accelerator, incubator, or VC programs from around the world. I'm your host, Sean Goldfaden, CEO of Coefficient Labs, and on today's episode, we'll be interviewing David Turkell, the digital director of ScaleLA. David takes us on his journey from political campaign organizer to a true member of the LA startup ecosystem, where he gives his tips and advice on how startups can integrate themselves into their local communities. In this podcast, David discusses the importance of always asking how you can help, why ScaleLA focuses on healthcare startups, and the importance of a physical space in regards to the acceleration of your startup. Also, Coefficient Labs is giving away a $10,000 growth hacking package for one VC and one founder that leaves a rating and a review on the Apple Podcast. So if you're listening to this on podcast or watching it on our website, go check out the Apple Podcast, leave us a review, and you have a chance at winning. Without further ado, let's get into Demo Day. David, thank you so much for joining us on today's show.
Thanks for having me. This is such an amazing space. Glad you guys are here. There was a hilarious moment beforehand because I ended up at a WeWork before this, and it's just a great reminder in how the work that we're doing and actually working with the community, as opposed to what WeWork is doing, is the new face of gentrification. So I was really glad to see what you guys are doing over here as opposed to there, and just honored to be here. So thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. Yes, quick jab over at WeWork.
Of course.
Awesome. So before we dive too deep into the show, I did find something that I thought would be amazing to bring up in my research. So I checked out your Twitter and I found this amazing GIF that I want to cast for you up onto the television screen here. And so what I want to do is I want to look at the GIF itself, and oh man, we're going to show this to the squad here, but what was going through your head during this moment, and what has this GIF meant to your life?
Awesome. So we'll do the play-by-play. I'll start this off by talking about the background between this. So this is me at Staples Center on October 5th, 2017, was turning 27 on that night at the time. And it was absolutely fantastic. It was a great game. Kings were playing wonderful. And there's this one fan who the Kings always show during a game, and it's the guy in the center that you see, and he gets riled up. I actually started talking with him before the game. He's like a very, very intense lawyer, high-profile lawyer, and then he comes from his downtown office to Staples Center, and like you can see, he's got his collared shirt up on it, like he's ready to go, and he just throws his jersey on right afterwards. Midway through, he's going on in, and he just goes crazy. I think they play Black Betty, and he just goes wild every single third period. And one of my friends was texting me, we had, a little fun during the game. We're hanging out, we're doing a good thing. And he's texting me like, hey, let's meet up afterwards. We'll go maybe do a bar crawl or something. And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And then I look up, and there's a distinct moment where I'm literally texting, and I look up, and suddenly I'm like, oh my God, I'm on a video board at Staples Center on my birthday. And it's that moment where you just realize, well, do I just smile, do nothing, cheer, or do you be the full fan you've always wanted to be? And I was just like, I have to go for it. So I know that they can't hear me, so I'm not screaming. I'm just, silently screaming there, like ready to go and just trying to pump everybody up. But it's just such a funny thing. Like, there's three different people who are doing three completely different things. There's one dude with, what looks like a talus around his neck, and just kind of hanging out, bobbing his head. There's this, investment banker, lawyer type who's just going crazy. And then I just look up and I'm like, oh, time to go. Like, let's go. Let's make this happen and let's do it. So it was amazing. The Kings won. They were far better that season than they were last season, which was a complete joke. So shout out to the Kings. Shout out to my investment banker lawyer friend who I haven't talked to since then. But if he's happening to hear this, let's get together soon.
Mazel tov.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, that was fantastic. Thank you for the story. So if you look at your LinkedIn and you kind of go back, really like through through your LinkedIn, a lot of what you've done in your past has really been tied to whether it be politics or working on the campaign trail or really just involved in community. Why tech? What is it about technology that is driving you, and why did you make the change from helping people on a campaign trail to helping startups and technology companies?
Sure. So I was very fortunate to be involved in the Obama campaign. And that was one of the first campaigns to really implement tech as the focus of a campaign, as opposed to general policy, working on, just knocking on doors. Like, there was a huge social media element. I mean, one of the first campaigns to use hashtags and all that. And so my roles on campaigns used to be, getting door-to-door people ready to go, getting people together for, making phone calls and all that kind of stuff. And I realized, well, I'm not getting any volunteers who are, going to come through my office. Nobody wants to drive 30 minutes to an hour to, make phone calls for 4 hours, especially in LA where you're going through so much traffic and there's no way of dealing with it. So I realized back in about 2012, 2013, we need to shift everything towards digital. You need to be able to participate in a campaign from your couch. And as we're seeing now, there's more people who want to participate in the electoral process via technology, via tweeting. I mean, look at our president. Everybody wants to, get involved in that certain way. And so I realized, what if we can bring the campaign to your couch? Meaning, how can you be involved? Instead of just tweeting, how can you actually have activism? And so I started to shift and then worked for a company called Nation Builder, where we, were able to see thousands of different campaigns across the world. And I got a bird's eye view into sort of tech and the community, and especially the community here in Los Angeles. I also went to UC Davis, shout out, go Aggies. But if if you've seen sort of Northern California, you've seen how tech's affected those local communities. And growing up in Los Angeles, I wanted to make sure that the future of Los Angeles was secure, and that when tech grows in Los Angeles, it can grow successfully, but also work with local communities and make sure that those local communities are actually succeeding, as opposed to what we've seen in San Francisco, where tech is taking over and not actually working with local communities. And so that's sort of how I got involved in tech in general. Worked with a bunch of startups, have been to a bunch of networking events out here, and with ScaleLA, which we're fortunate enough to be launching and running successfully out in the West LA Palms area, just making sure that tech is working with local community leaders. And it's been so successful. It's been so great to see it, because it's not that they, leaders in tech want to avoid the community or want to, step on the future of the community. It's that they don't know how and who to deal with. And so when we connect these actual people together and say, like, hey, Snapchat, like, you can actually do something for the middle school that's right across the street from your headquarters. Like, you should talk to those people. They love doing that kind of stuff. And so it's about bringing these stakeholders together in the community and making sure they understand from each other, as opposed to, just keeping people separate, which has generally been the biggest problem in Los Angeles in general. I'm saying in general too much, but you look at, so many different industries as everybody's around, and people just don't talk to each other. People don't collaborate because there's so much going on, and so people want to stay in their own bubbles. And so anything that we can do in order to demystify that and actually stop that and get people to work together will help the future of tech in the city.
I could not agree more. You and I met at the Quake launch event. I've been to many of your events at Scale, and it seems as though that Scale is not only for venture capitalists and not only for hosting events, but also for startups. What exactly is Scale, and who is it for?
So Scale is for the community of Los Angeles. I mean, that is the center of everything that we do. And we want to make sure that the future of Los Angeles is secure through technical and healthcare innovation. We decided, it's actually coming up on 3 years now. This guy, Taylor McPartland, who's the CEO of Scale, and I got together, and we started talking about everything, started figuring out what are the main issues in LA, what are a lot of the systemic issues in LA. So we did 2.5 years of research to figure out, how do we, work to solve issues of homelessness, especially, with a 16% jump in homelessness over the last year in the city of Los Angeles alone. This is an issue, and this is a huge crisis that we need to make sure is addressed. But how do we take these large systemic issues and actually, find the root cause of it? We realized with homelessness, so much of a majority of it is mental health related.
Yes.
So many of it is medical debt related. And so everything that we were looking at, different issues in Los Angeles, was relating back to healthcare. And so what we did was we created a floor for early stage startups in the healthcare community in Los Angeles that are interested in giving back and addressing these actual issues and giving them a space to actually make it so that their dream can become a reality. And so that is what is at the heart of Scale, just making sure that we can help the healthcare community in Los Angeles and make it so that we don't see sick people on the streets. We don't see people who, because it's not, a lot of the time people say, oh, well, these people are on drugs. These people are, this is an issue. It's not drugs. The majority of this, is not that issue. It's, the fact that there isn't readily available, affordable mental health care in this country, and definitely not in this city. And there's no access to, affordable healthcare in general, it seems like. And so a lot of people are choosing, well, maybe I should eat this meal instead of, paying for psychiatric care. And this is why we're setting up for a lot of these different companies that come on by, because it's important not just for, us all to feel good. It's important for the future of this city. And, growing up here, you didn't see as many people here on the streets as there are now.
Not even close, especially in the, people think of Santa Monica, Venice Beach from afar as like the most beautiful, pristine beach cities. But if you go out there after, let's say 9 o'clock at night, it's a totally different world in Venice Beach. If you go for an early morning run in Venice, it looks like an entire campground of hundreds and hundreds of homeless people living in tents on the beaches. And, until you're in that environment and, have the opportunity like you do to connect these people with real ways of getting out of it, who's going to help or who's going to make that better?
That's exactly right. And that's what we want to do. We want to make sure that people are, effectively addressing the root causes of this issue instead of just, giving money to organizations, which I think is the general norm. People think you can throw money at the issue as opposed to putting in tangible work.
So it's very clear to me that community is not only a big part of Scale's DNA, but it's clearly a big part of your DNA. Why is community so important? And what does community even mean to you?
Community are people. And I've always loved people. I've always loved talking to people, meeting people, and learning from their stories. And I really think that, the storytelling is the heart of everything. It's what keeps things exciting. It's, you're learning different people's experiences. And LA is such a great community because there's so many different experiences. You can be on one block and 400 different languages are spoken. And if there are even 400 languages in the world. But, this is what it is. And I think I lived in Cleveland, Ohio in 2012, and I never realized how just diverse and special LA is until I actually left the bubble. And I came back and, you just realize you can go to one block and like I said, 400 languages. There's an Ethiopian restaurant next to a Thai restaurant, next to a Russian library. And there's no other place in the world that's like this. And so if we're able to take that diverse element of of this society and then replicate it and bring it back to actual work, that's something that I think where we can make a difference. A lot of tech, and we see a huge problem in tech, is diversity. And what I want to do is make sure that, you can go into any office, no matter what the industry is specifically, and it looks like the city of LA. Like, why should the streets of LA look different than, the offices of LA? And I think that's a huge problem that
that's
we all
really
need to
interesting.
address.
I've never heard it stated like that. So talk to us, David. Like, who is David Turkell? Where did you grow up? You're born and raised in LA or outside of LA?
So born and raised in LA, born at Cedars-Sinai, and grew up about 5 blocks from there until I was about 15 over at Beverly and Flores. So I always tell people it's a funny story that, I grew up in a house and then it was bought by A$AP Rocky, of all people. So my childhood home was demolished by Pretty Jordy Flacco, which was a pretty wild thing. But my dad always talks about it. He's like, you shouldn't have torn down my plum tree, A$AP. He
tweets him. It's like the only tweet your dad's ever done.
If my dad had a Twitter, it would be so brutal. Like, I'm just very excited. Like, I mean, he's turning 60. Very excited for him to just retire and not get fired over tweeting something terrible or something. Like, he always tells me, he's like, go tweet at Bill Plaschke, the sports writer. Like, tell him your thoughts. And I'm like, Dad, you can get a Twitter. Like, it's not hard. He's like, no, but you do it. You have clout. I'm like, okay. It's just a classic LA Jewish father, and I love him so much for it. But grew up over there, and then grew up mostly in mid-city after that. So we moved over to La Cienega and Olympic, and it's just, yeah, I mean, growing up in LA was so different from, what it is now. There was definitely a point in my life where, I think you're looking at like 2003 to 2005, where LA and Detroit were pretty much in a similar sort of, world of like, where they could go. There was rampant poverty, rampant unemployment growing up. And there was this huge brain drain of talent that, like the constant joke, when you're walking around in LA is, oh, where are you from? And nobody says LA. And it's so rare to be, to meet other people who are from here. Like 90% of my friends have moved to other cities, and there's a huge brain drain that's a problem. And so me coming back to LA, like I never thought after college that I would come back to LA like immediately. I didn't think that was going to be a thing. I thought, I was going to go on a political track. I was going to go move to DC, work for some lobbying firm or some big organization. I never realized that, I could do political work back in LA, on a national level, but from, anywhere in LA, let alone not even an office. You can just do it remotely. Like, you're growing up, I didn't have a concept of, there would be remote work or any of this kind of stuff. And I'm just so thankful to be back here and to be working actually with the community. And I never thought, 10 years ago, 11 years ago at this point, as a high school student, I never thought that we would be connecting leaders in all facets of my life, in different industries that I've worked for. And so other than that, I mean, just generally happy to be here and living a taco-based diet. So it's been great.
On your website, on the Scale website, you say by incorporating community into our mission, everything became clear. Entrepreneurs develop solutions to issues that the community are facing every day, and government is the fuel that can empower implementation and progress. Not many tech entrepreneurs that come onto the show even bring the government into the equation. It's almost as if like they're in a single-minded track. Why do you feel it's important to bridge the gap between government and tech companies?
Because tech is so much more advanced than government. And I think the funniest thing is when people from outside government try and get involved in government and then immediately just bang their head against a wall because they're using computers that are still, working with Windows 98. And that's, what we need to do. Like tech needs to be speaking with people on the state, federal, and local level in order to get government up to speed. People who are in tech, like we love using Slack, we love using Asana, or hate using Asana.
This is in coefficient labs. Everyone hates using Asana.
You
got to do it.
Yeah, you got to do it. Like these are the processes, and government officials are still using Lotus Notes, and this is why we need to sort of help people in government. A lot of the civic tech that's out there is so great because it's taking things and just helping people progress 30 years as, a government entity. And as far as, what we're doing in local communities, like tech needs to be that sort of conscience that's saying, hey guys, like this is how we can work together. I'll tell you a funny story. So back a few years ago, me being a progressive, some days I'm Democratic Socialist, some days I guess I'm a corporate Democrat, depending on who's yelling at me on Facebook. I had the chance to meet with, of all people, Newt Gingrich. And we talked with him. I got a calendar invite that I was meeting with him, and then meeting with him 4 hours later. And I'm like, why am I meeting with this guy? Like, I am a, progressive who has spent my entire life, screaming about this guy. And it's a good lesson in, going beyond your comfort zone and meeting those people who completely disagree with you. And he came into the office and he was pitching an idea called electeds.org, which was a forum for any elected official, Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, Green, nonpartisan, you name it, to get on this social media platform and crowdsource ideas about how to implement good, sound policy in your local communities, no matter what level you were on. And he was going to do it with Cory Booker or Nancy Pelosi. He had all those people lined up and ready to go. And eventually, Trump wins, Gingrich says, I'm not going to work with the other side. I don't care about this, and they never launch it. But this was technology that was being built by, people who were ready to go, who were very smart, were coders who had put every element together to actually have community outreach so that we could end this bipartisan gridlock in DC. And it was super helpful. It would have been amazing, and it just never launched. But these are the type of things that tech needs to come on in and say, hey, like, we could end this partisan gridlock. Like, there's no reason why we don't have better roads and bridges right now. That's what we should be doing as a society of, reaching across the aisle and saying, hey, Santa Monica doesn't need any more potholes. Like, this is terrible. We need to actually get together and promote good, sound policy, but nobody's working together.
And I think what's really interesting about that is that, that sort of accomplishment comes through communication, right? Whether you're talking about international policy or local community, it comes through communication. And I think, having a space like Scale opens the communication freeways. You can have people come and meet, you can have events, you can utilize that space. And I think, it really holds true to your both personal mission and business missions around, really connecting the dots. Are there any specific learnings that you took away from your time in politics that you now utilize in your time at Scale in building community and opening up those pipelines for communication?
Yeah, always ask how you can support people. When you're in a campaign, you're working 130 hours a week, 7 days a week.
Literally.
Like literally, it's people want to get involved in politics. They want to get involved in campaigns. And the biggest thing people don't realize is, number one, there's actually no money in politics. You're working 7 days a week, 130, 140 hours a week, making a $30,000 a year salary. And that's prorated. So usually when you're on a campaign, you're only working 3 months. And so you're making chump change essentially for everything. And, you have to treat everyone around you with respect. You have to, be proactive and be empathetic for people. And so that's one of the things we constantly do with our team. We're asking, hey, as far as being proactive as, opposed to reactive, how can we help you? How can, how's your load this week? Who can be more supportive? Just constantly communicating with that kind of stuff is so meaningful to the work that we do. And that's why I think we have such a good relationship in the office. Like, this is I've had so many different jobs. I mean, I joke with one people. I had a job for, it was about 2 years ago that I had for 1 week. I interviewed for 8 weeks to get this job, and I had a job for 1 week, and then they ran out of money, and, they tried to gaslight me and say, oh yeah, well, your performance isn't up to speed. And I'm like, I've been here for 5 days. Guys, like, what speed am I working with? Like, I just read the essentially syllabus of this entire company. It's crazy, but this is the best job I've ever had because I trust everybody who's working with me. I trust they can get everything done. They are smart, they're intelligent, and just so excited to come in the office every day. And so the more that you're empowering the staff around you, the better it's going to be for you and for everyone around you, because people will want to have ownership of that company and of that space. And it becomes less like a job and more like a life without sucking the life away from you and spending so many hours every day. It's the perfect way to find a good work-life balance.
Yeah, and I can't remember if it was Ben Smith or one of the guests we had on the podcast was just talking about how whenever you're in a rut, you're feeling like things aren't going your way, or you're down, or just you're just not feeling yourself, when you can go in and help someone else and ask them what they need help with and connect the dots for someone else, like, you sort of, the world has this weird way of working, and I can imagine that, in your position, that you're seeing that often.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, it's viral. It's when you're able to talk to somebody and then say, hey, how can I help you? What's going on? You get on their level, they understand what's going on, and then they'll do it back to you in a few weeks. Like, it's perfect. It's a perfect way of getting people to cohabitate and work with each other. And especially, with what we do, in this sort of hybrid incubator, accelerator, co-working model, it's shown in our membership. We've had a lot of our members who just go out and say, oh, hey, like, let's grab a conference room right now and let's work with each other. Completely different companies, like two absolutely different companies that are, working with each other. Like, I'll give you an example. We have one guy named LaRue Palmer, who's awesome. Love him so much. He was Elon Musk's chef over at Tesla. and decided, how do I create a cooking method that will be good for people who are suffering from diabetes, pre-diabetes, and working to reverse some of the, issues that are going on there. He then teamed up with a company called Uniper, which are two Israelis who are just wonderful as well. But both these guys come from, completely different backgrounds, and they, have completely different focuses in the company, but they're figuring out, okay, how can I just get in a conference room and figure out, the culture of what we want to set for our company? How do we set up, the story of what we're doing and connect that with our mission? And you don't see this when, you're working in private offices and nobody works together on this sort of issue. This is something that you only see now in this new generation of co-working that is remarkable when people open themselves up to, hear new ideas and actually work together. So I think it's phenomenal. I mean, you have to empower your staff and you have to empower those around you in order to make it happening. It's definitely something I learned from the Obama campaign. It was empowerment was the center core of just everything that we worked on, because if you're not empowered, you're working 130 hours and it's miserable. And so it's the only way to keep going and, stay motivated.
Most of the events that I've been to at Scale or I've seen you at have been VC related, where the VCs have either been hosting or running. Why would a venture capitalist around town, we've had several on the show, why would they want to host an event or have people come to Scale?
I mean, it's a playground. Honestly, it's a way for them to see, you go into the ScaleLA office, you see a ton of good companies that are working in there. You get to see how they treat people, what they're doing, how they work at a desk. It's a perfect example of, the view into how does this person work? I'm giving this person, $25,000 or $500,000, for the future of their company and hoping that this investment works out. How can I look at this person and say, can I trust this person? Is this person great to work with? Is this person committed? And there's always going to be good companies that you're working with. It's kind of like when, you go to the supermarket and you go on in and you have like a list of a certain things. Like these are the companies that, say the VCs are going in, they're saying, well, these are the companies that I want to invest in right now. Well, anytime you go to a supermarket, you never just buy, what's on your list. I'm always getting
a little this, a little that.
Yeah. Like I can't tell you the amount of times I've gotten Sour Patch watermelons. Shout out to your new sponsor, Sour Patch watermelons. For just when I was trying to get milk and cereal and all that kind of stuff. So it's constantly seeing new companies that are involved. VCs love that, and I mean, I think we're always very responsive. I fault myself because I know that you emailed me and I didn't respond for like 2 or 3 weeks because I was absolutely slammed. But we're generally responsive with absolutely, anybody that we work with. And I think it all, comes back to, why we do this. And that for us is, we want to show VCs that we are action driven. And, growing up here in LA, you see the entertainment industry, you see so many people that'll tell you, hey, let's get together. Let's go do stuff. Oh, we should definitely kick it. We should do something together. And then they never call you back. And we are so sick of, these people who promise action, who, and never deliver. And so our big thing is, how can we deliver? But also with VCs, how do we filter out, some of the VCs that just are not in it for the right reasons?
You've run into that as well?
Yeah. Without naming any names, I mean, I've seen venture capitalist firms that don't care about the health of the community of Los Angeles. And anytime that we work with people, Quake is a great example of a VC that is, wonderful and is working with us great. And we're so thankful for Trevor and Anthony over there and the team. And they actually so the cohort just ended.
Demo day yesterday.
Yeah, and demo was in our office, and it was so cool to see what they're doing. But these, we want to help promote the good VC firms that are going to be in Los Angeles, and not just because, they're good people that we can deal with, but this is the future of Los Angeles. I don't want what I've termed as sort of vulture capitalists coming into Los Angeles and just taking apart companies and taking apart lives. Like the amount of VCs that, tell companies like, hey, we're coming into, we're going to invest you, and then we're going to give you all the money, and then we're going to be your only sort of voice for decision making. And then telling companies, oh, well, you have to lay off half your staff. This is the only way you can do it. And just taking companies, instead of making it so that These companies are people driven. It's like people are a barcode at that point. And that's the opposite of what we want. We want VCs that work with people that are invested and actually care about the people that they're working with and want to see it grow and expand, and then go to barbecues with those people, like be a part of the family. Like, we're really tied in this idea of the family. And if there's a VC that just goes in and says, well, I'm going to invest and I don't care about it, I just want my money back, that's not what we're interested in. Like, we're trying to make LA a different model than what we've seen in any of these other communities. And I think that's what's important for us.
A great answer. And I think it even stems to like what you were talking about around how, in many cases, like these startups have a school right across the street, or a library, or some kind of an organization where they can collaborate. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to give away free things or give away free services, but just looking for opportunities to collaborate, right? Even as we're talking, it has me thinking like, how can we give back to an art class, or how can we, we do advertising. So what are ways that we can collaborate with a local church or a synagogue, or like, there's so many ways to, bring people together, and it doesn't have to be this like me versus you type of an atmosphere. Very cool for venture capitalists. By all means, if you're a VC listening to this, reach out to David for your events if you want to learn and talk more. What about on the startup side? So I know you guys are. It's so interesting because you almost have this general philosophy around community, but it seems like your heartstrings are pulled with healthcare. That healthcare is really where your DNA lies within the members that join the team. So what is it like if you're a startup? How do startups interact with your company, and what sort of entrepreneur is the right entrepreneur for your space?
Sure, and that's an absolutely great question. We love to work with startups that really just want to have a good footprint in Los Angeles and want to work with people, and want to work with people beyond their own communities. At the same time, you don't necessarily need to be a tech startup to come into scale, which is interesting. We do make exceptions. And you just sort of touch on a few elements, whether you're involved in healthcare, and healthcare is a broad term. Healthcare is, the common network of hospitals, providers, insurance, and that kind of world. But it's also, what is the new healthcare? This was healthcare in the 1900s and the early 2000s. But as we see healthcare, and it's sort of expanding, especially here in Los Angeles, that includes wellness, that includes cannabis. We want to provide the link between all of those, and we're looking ahead. We're not looking to just be kind of held by the standards of, okay, healthcare is a hospital, and you go here and there's dudes in white coats. Mm-hmm. That's not interesting to us. And we want to make sure that people are going beyond that. One of the coolest companies that we work with, and I always talk about this because it's just such a funny way how Jamil Lacey, who's the head of Trap Medicine, which is this company, he and I got together because I often, as I said, the taco-based diet. I host taco sessions in my house all the time. We have people cooking and just people to meet each other, on a Sunday just to kick and relax.
I want the invite.
You're open invite anytime. You can come to my weird neighborhood that I'm trying to describe as the in-between Brentwood, West LA, Westwood, and Santa Monica that has no name in there. It's like Wilshire and Barrington.
Sawtell?
It's not even Sawtell. So I've just been describing my neighborhood as 7-Eleven to people because there's a 7-Eleven and a Baskin-Robbins, and that's pretty much it.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
There's nothing there, and it's great. There's no neighborhood, and so I'm actually trying to work with council member Mike Bonin to figure out what we should call this area, just because there's nothing. But getting back to the original topic is the working with Jamil Lacey has been great because he is a med student at Charles Drew University, from Oakland. Very much so understands the Black community here in America and what the needs are. And his purpose with Trap Medicine is to take barbershops, predominantly in the Black community, and teach these barbers how to speak with their clients about getting STI testing, getting cancer screenings, going to get checked up. And he's organizing all of these barbershops across the country to just speak with their clients. And, when you are, for me as a, Jewish male in my 20s, I don't have the special kind of relationships that, with my barber that we see in the Black community. This is almost holy. And for them to talk and change the conversation between, what is going on in your life to what are you doing to protect your life? There's a huge stigma in healthcare in the Black community because 50 to 75 years ago, there were doctors who were running experiments on people who would come on in. And so there's a lot of PTSD based on that, even if it's not even known or anything that's going on. This is important because it's changing the narrative of how we talk about health. And for people in the Black community who are, overwhelmingly suffering from diabetes and overwhelmingly suffering heart attacks, this is what we're doing to try and change the game. I think something that bugs me is when a lot of startups say, well, we're just here to change the world. This is what we're doing, and we're just going to change the world with our app that sends yo to another person. And it's like, no, you can't change the world if you're not even changing the block around you for the better, and for helping the people who are living on the streets, outside of your startup. And what we want to do, for companies like Trap Medicine, is make it so that if you have a dream, you can execute it, and we will provide all the resources to make sure that you do it without stripping equity, without doing this, because this is the future of Los Angeles. And we want to make sure that we are creating companies here, and this is the hub of progress for absolutely any company that wants to come on by, regardless of your background. And yes, obviously, we do want to change the sort of country club nature of tech where, it's a bunch of bros in Patagonia vests, but this is what we want to do. And we want to make it so that someone, who's dreaming from East LA can come on into an office, at Palms and Sepulveda with their idea and then market it and then be on, the front page of TechCrunch. That's what we want to achieve. And there's no organizations in LA that are really, working to do that. And so that's why, that is sort of why we want to work with these, early stage founders, because we want to make sure they're in the right direction. They're not getting picked up by these vulture capitalists, that they're working with good VC. Peter Brack, for example, who actually used to work in this building, he's one of the nicest and smartest individuals I've ever met, was involved with Mucker until recently. And he agrees with us, and he works with some of these companies because he understands that this is for the future of Los Angeles. And we want to change, sort of the dynamic between tech and the communities here.
What are you most excited about this year? Could be work related, could be non-work related. What has got you most excited right now?
Okay, in general, let's see. Non-work related, very excited for the so the way I de-stress, and I think this is important. I think people, as far as healthcare goes, people need to openly talk about how they de-stress, and it's taboo topic. Nobody talks about that kind of stuff. It's my goal every year to go to 100 concerts every single year. Sets, concerts, however you specifically describe it. And I'm very excited for possibly what is the best festival in the world, Primavera Sound, which is in Spain, to come to Los Angeles in 2020. So it is next year, but they just announced it and they just released it on sale. It's going to be at LA State Historic Park. Very excited to see this festival come to LA, and very excited to see the LA flair of it. I'll take this the opposite way. The least thing I'm excited for is the 2020 election, because as we saw in 2016, America was just not ready for a presidential election. It was not good. And the amplification of just everyone's polarization on social media has made everything terrible. And people are just picking the weirdest things about various candidates and suddenly canceling them. It's like, I'm not ready for it. I think it's going to be a bizarre race, and I'm I just get so much anxiety every time I just think about what Donald is going to say about any of these candidates. So it's already freaking me out, and I'm already seeing just this same toxic culture in 2016 that existed just be picked up about various people. People calling Elizabeth Warren a corporate Democrat. How many VCs could we go to and say, hey, so do you know about corporate Democrat Elizabeth Warren? And seeing just them laugh us out of that room. And people just don't understand this perspective. People are stuck in their bubbles right now, and they don't understand that there's so many different candidates who are out there who provides so many good things. Like we're fortunate enough, we haven't publicized it too much, but we're launching a presidential candidate series out of ScaleLA. And we just started last Friday with Julian Castro, former Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. And it was an amazing surprise that his twin brother, Joaquin, showed up in the office, who's an active Congress member. And he was talking about his issues and he was answering questions. And I think the biggest thing that we like doing and that I like doing is making it so that anyone can ask any question that they feel. Like, do not be scared. Just because this person is influential or, has 150,000 Instagram followers or whatever metric you judge success by, you shouldn't be scared to ask them, what's on your mind and what's real. And so we had a lot of people asking these questions, and it was so much more effective than just arguing with randos on Twitter. And that's more of the stuff I want to see. Like, not that you have to pay $250,000 to get a plate dinner with a presidential candidate. We were charging people $25. They come on in, there's hors d'oeuvres, there's beers, pretty much everything pays for itself. And you get to ask a candidate exactly, what is most important to you. And that's more of the stuff I'm excited for. I'm less excited for just the back and forth of people arguing. Like, I already know I'm going to have to block 100 people in the next year on Twitter.
Yeah, it seems within regards to that, rather than having the vitriol or all of the anger, the emotions kind of be projected out onto some social media world, like, let's have a talk in person. Let's come and let's have a conversation in person. Let's bring people together. And I totally think that, in a world where, whatever side you find yourself on, in so many situations, at least for me personally, and I know from so many I love and work with, even that the way you treat someone that you're sitting across the table from is so much different than the way you treat someone that is, Jamie Two Pants 96 on Twitter. And so utilizing this space, utilizing these opportunities to really have communication, that's the way to bring people together. David, this was an amazing, amazing episode. Where can people find you if they want to reach out to you?
So you can find me. I'm at David Turkell on Twitter. If you want to really follow me on Instagram for a schizophrenic view into my life and every single thing that I'm involved, you can follow me at Trump Has Tiny Hands, or at Scale Los Angeles. I had to get it. Like, when
As a plug.
Yeah, I had to get it back in the day, and now I'm just sickened by it. It's like, oh God, like, why do I have this? And now when I message people, they're like, what, Trump? Like, I'm not going to, I get it. Okay, that was cool like 4 years ago. So, it's crazy. So shout out to any VCs who want to buy that, Instagram handle off me. Please take it away from me. I don't need any more. But follow at Scale Los Angeles on everything. We constantly respond to people. We love hearing new voices. And come to our offices. We're in the True Car building off the 405. If you've ever seen it, when you've just pounded your head against your steering wheel, stuck in 3 mile per hour traffic. But we really do want to amplify the voices of local communities. So if you are confused by tech, if you are confused by healthcare, or if you have an idea and you want to make it happen and you've never figured out exactly how to do it best, come on by. We'd love to help you out. If we can't help you, we love steering people in the right direction and setting them up with local people. But I am so excited to see the growth of tech and the growth of healthcare here in LA. We have 500,000 healthcare jobs that are going to be coming into LA in the next 5 years. And we want to make sure that everyone's prepared for that influx of growth. And whatever we can do in order to support that kind of growth and to make LA into the true cosmopolitan city that, it has the full potential to be, is, the potential to be one of the best cities in the world, I'm here for it. And thank you, honestly, for bringing me on. This is so cool, and I'm so excited to become a regular listener of everything that's going on and hear different perspectives.
Thank you so much. So you heard it here, guys. If you are a VC, if you are an entrepreneur that's in the healthcare space, that's trying to change the way that humans communicate, not only in LA, but just in the country in general, reach out to David, check out ScaleLA, go to one of their events. I'm Sean Goldfaden, founder of Demo Day and Coefficient Labs. Thank you so much. We will see you on the next episode. Peace.
If you're a startup, you know your customer, right? Your customer is your people buying your product, right? So, and for venture capitalists, our customer is not that well defined.